Irashaimase! Hello and welcome to Fitaurus Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fitaurus. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this Saturday, we have Neptunia Shooter, an 8-bit inspired shoot 'em up featuring the girls of Hyperdimension Neptunia. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. From developer Idea Factory, Neptunia Shooter was originally announced as an April Fool's Day joke. A week later, and it was revealed that it was an actual real project coming to PC. And now, at the end of May 2019, here it is, Neptunia Shooter. So the game has just one real game mode, but we do also have an online leaderboard, which is a really fun way to go and compare yourself against everybody else that's playing the game. Starting the game, we're dropped right in there, playing the role of Neptunia in Parsec 1. So she has a straight shot where she's firing these awesome D-pad shells at the enemies, and the enemies are the Dogu slime characters from the Hyperdimension Neptunia series. So if you're familiar with those games at all, then you'll definitely see a lot of these guys. And that's one thing that I can definitely go and say. This is a title that you'll definitely get more enjoyment out of if you're a fan of the Neptunia series and franchise, which I am. So for me, it really has a lot of appeal. But the game itself is a basic 8-bit shoot 'em up where you move around the screen. Fortunately, if you do have analog, you can use that, which is great. And you also just have your shot. And at least for the first stage, that's it. So there is a little bit of homage throughout the course of the gameplay, though. We do have this section here, which is very reminiscent of the first stage of Gradius, and followed by our first boss. So this boss is Kompa. She goes and throws pills up, which eventually fall down, as well as throwing syringes at us. She's also protected by some Dogu slime shields, so we have to get our shots between the shields to be able to take her out. Once we take her down, that's where the fun begins. She'll join us, and we'll have the ability to use her as well. Her attack is this pill bomb, where she'll go and throw these pills downward onto enemies in a high arc. So it's kind of difficult for some situations, but fortunately we have the ability to switch back and forth between the two characters. And that's basically the loop of gameplay that we have in this game. We'll play through a stage, we'll encounter a boss, the boss will join us, and we'll have a new form of attack. And the next stage that follows will, in most cases, utilize, well, actually not necessarily utilize, but make us utilize the character that we just unlocked. It's actually a really satisfying gameplay loop. And, well, not just on top of that, I think the 8-bit sprites that they put together for the characters are super adorable. And another thing that I really love about the game, the music. Okay, so here's our second boss. This is Ify. She's the actual mascot that's meant to go and represent Idea Factory in the game itself. Kompa represents Compile Heart. Those were the two companies behind the original Hyperdimension Neptunia. So her attacks are relatively straightforward, but she does have two attack patterns. One that's we're better fighting as Neptune for, and the other that we're better as fighting as Kompa. Now we get Ify, and she's got this reverse laser, so we can go and cover the backside of the screen using her. So you swap back and forth between the characters using the L and R buttons on your controller. And that can get a little bit tricky sometimes, as if you go the wrong direction, you might not end up on the characters you want to have. So there is a little bit of memorization as far as figuring out where you are in your cycle. And that's one of my complaints about the game, is as you continue to add on characters, it gets really hard to end up on the character you want for the kind of attack that you're after. So another thing with the gameplay is as we take hits, that's what the lives are. Is just instead of 1-ups, you'll continue just from the spot you are, just after a short vulnerability period, and that's in the bottom right there. You do gain extra lives or extra hits every 30,000 points, so it is kind of generous that way. So we're up against our third boss here, Noir. Noir is, well, the bosses tend to get like trickier and trickier as they go on. She's got 3 forms, one that works well for all of our various characters. That really didn't go well there. So this balloon phase is meant to be one for Compa, but I kind of got in a bad spot, so we'll switch over to just damage control as Neptune. And bam! That's Noir. And there we have it. That is Neptunia Shooter served up for your enjoyment. For what started out as an April Fool's Day joke, I think this is a title that turned out beautifully. The characters are really fun, the gameplay is interesting, I love the music. It's definitely a title that could have been a lot less than what it was, but especially for the price point of only $5 US, it's definitely a great title in my mind. So, especially if you're a fan of the Neptunia franchise, this is one that I can heartily recommend. As far as the plus flavors are concerned, I really love the various strategy of swapping between the characters, and the boss fights in particular, how there's a section that each character can go and excel at, and even here you can go and see as we dodge around these Dogu, there are certain parts of the phases that will be better for one character or another. And then there's just also the online leaderboards make the game a lot of fun, though unfortunately I have seen some scores that look utterly unobtainable, so there is some cheating involved. Here we are up against the boss, Vert. She's actually can be really tricky with some of her attacks. The only real minus flavor I have is as you get more characters, it just becomes difficult to swap between the characters in an efficient manner. Alright, so that'll just about wrap it up for this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for coming out and joining me this week, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.